Going on, people? Decided to do a live. Haven't done one down here in a while. I'm down in the New Cruise Longevity Center, Costa del Sol. It's Holy Week here in El Salvador, so pretty much the whole week is everybody in the country has off. And it's quiet right now, but it's pretty crowded down here. The best way I can describe it to you, if you've ever been to Destin on 4th of July, that's what it's like in Costa del Sol this week. So came down here to check on, the progress of what's been going on, because unfortunately this was supposed to be open on March 31st, but I screwed up and started adding more things to the project that I wanted done. And we're kind of slowed down. There's parts of it that are open. I'm going to show you a little bit. Like you can see, I'm actually in the pool, so that's working. So I'm going to turn this around and show you some of the stuff that's going on. So that right there is the main area. That one is completely done, all surrounded by volcanic stone. You can see they're all white. That's added EMF protection. You can't do anything inside that place. Everything is shielded. It's an EMF fortress. It's done. It's just not decorated. I've got a bed, a bedroom. We got a nice table in there. No, I'm not going to get out of the pool and go in there and show it to you, because I may do that next time. But you can see in the back there, that's my new car, but the white car back there is one of the cars that will be used here at the clinic. And then you can see the beach vehicle kind of right there. The beach vehicle takes you to and from the Pacific Ocean, so you can do the sunrise like we did this morning. There, this building, not done, but almost done. Since everybody's off this week, I decided to come down here. And that one should be done next week. Now, the back, that one is about 2 months out. And that is part of the reason why we were delayed. I decided to put that in at the end, and then unfortunately this week I decided I'm going to put a commercial kitchen in here. So right up the road, I also purchased a plot of land to open up a restaurant that will be affiliated with this property and the one on the beach, and also by the marina. So you can see the pool. If you haven't figured out, the pool is shaped like a fish. That's the fish mouth here. Back there is the tail. There's a fin. The pool is filled with water, believe it or not, from the estuary. We did have to augment it with some water from our wells. I don't know if you can see that right there, but see that hole in the ground right here? Those are the wells that we put in. And the water is a little bit yellow. We had to put a whole bunch of salt in. I think we've put 20 bags in total so far, but it's much more clear today than it was yesterday. Really nice. The water's fresh, that's for sure. And you can see that's the boat area where I would eventually have a boat and a jet ski, but I may change my tune a little bit on that, because this commercial kitchen, I've got another that is going right in this triangular area here. We'll have an outside kitchen here, but right in here, my plan is to do a commercial kitchen that will not only augment the restaurant, but I think I'm going to do something here for the local people too, where I'm going to wall this off so that we can open up a storefront so people can sample some of the things, around here. And some of the things that we're doing. Yesterday we went and met a lady who's making furniture. And all the furniture, just so you guys know, this is teak stuff that's made by artisans down here. Same thing with the pillows. These pillows are made by an artisan down here. We'll have all those here. Obviously, we only have a couple now because it's still an active construction zone. So I'm not going to bring all that stuff down. And then you can see the beautiful trees. We got coconut I believe this one is a lychee nut tree. That is a mango tree. That is a cashew tree right there. You can actually see some of the cashew fruits on it now. There's an almond tree over here. That is a mango. This is this tree back there is and as well as that one there. That's the national tree of El Salvador. It's got a really weird name like mushalat or some shit like that. But it really makes nice flowers. The flowers haven't come out yet. You can see on the top of that tree you're starting to get them. But it's really, really nice. It's a beautiful, area. You can see I don't like really the color of my next door neighbor's house, so I decided to put up a metal steel galvanized structure that we're going to be growing bougainvilleas vines, so you won't be able to see any of that. I also put it in the front over here, and you can see I think my guy right now who's taking care of the property, he's grown some of the vines. You can see all the way up on the top, so pretty cool, and that'll be covered. I'm also planning on, if you look at that little box back there, it's gray, small gray wall. That is going to be an herb garden, tomatoes, basil, oregano, things like that. That'll be local here. The grounds that are outside, you can't see it great. Like I said, I'm being lazy for you guys because I don't want to get out of the pool. But I can show you like some of the process. All this stone is all volcanic stone. So you ground directly on this. You can see it's all bordered by gray stone, but you see the old terracotta stone that was there from the old build. I decided to leave it in because it's grounded. It's pretty good, but I'm going over it with this stone that you're seeing right here. So this will all be connected. We'll have a ramp here for people with disabilities to get in. And those will be all the little places in the back where people will be able to stay. I think total on here we'll probably be able to have between 15 and 20 people at one time. So it'll be pretty cool. And like I said, with the restaurant up the street, I anticipate the restaurant be done in about a year from now. I anticipate this being done in 2 months, and I think the commercial kitchen should be done by the end of the summer. So the progress is continuing. We're not stopping. So if you want to see what a real country's like with real freedom and real leadership, I'd suggest you get on a plane and come down and check out what President Bukele is kind of doing down here, because it's pretty amazing. I just realized I can show you something here. Now I know what kind of tree that was. See that little red thing there? That is an almond. This is an almond tree. So I screwed that up. Told you it was a lychee tree. The lychee tree's in the front. But, we have things that are growing right here. I am approximately, I'd say maybe 75 yards away from the estuary that's right behind the boat dock. I'm approximately, I'd say 2 blocks away from the Pacific Ocean. And when I say that, it's all on one property. This Costa del Sol is kind of like, if you're familiar with Miami or you're familiar with Destin, they have barrier islands. This is a barrier island that I'm on for El Salvador right now. And it's completely surrounded by water. And if you go down about a mile this way, over there, you get out where the estuary and the Pacific Ocean connects. In the estuary, there's a bunch of mangroves there. So if you have a boat or a jet ski, you can go all in those areas, catch fish. But you can get 300, 400, 500 pound tunas literally right off the coast here. So the goal with getting a boat, obviously for me here, especially with the restaurant, is to get fresh caught fish just about every day. So it'll be pretty cool, when it's all done. But like I said, it's a process. You have to buy the land, you have to develop the land, you have to get architects and people to build out. But for those of you who haven't been here in a while, especially if this is your home country and you're, exiled in the States, If you haven't been back in a while, you won't believe, what's happened down here. So it's really, it's a beautiful country. The people are beautiful. I have no issues with deploying my capital here. If you follow my decentralized thesis, you have to optimize light, water, and magnetism. If you understand what the blogs are saying, it's all about limiting deuterium in your blood and making sure it's not fucking up your matrix. And when you live in a place like this, it's easier to do. It doesn't mean that it's infallible, because you can live at the 13th latitude and still have low vitamin D and problems if you live inside and wear sunglasses. Think sunscreen's a good idea, things like that. You still have to embrace nature. But unfortunately, some of you live in places where it's seemingly impossible now with Silicon Valley sickness to really, get this stuff done. So you should really be mindful of that. And for those of you who don't know what Silicon Valley sickness is, today on LinkedIn I wrote that blog. Teaches you a little bit of how the GPS system in us works to fractionate things, how we moved in evolutionary times. Like 3.8 billion years ago, we had two domains on the planet, archaea and bacteria. And archaea, part of the body plan that we kept from them was our skeleton. And if you know anything about biology, archaea have different cell membranes and also cell walls, so they're much more rigid. So that way, when they were in the ancient oceans, they would use mechanical vibration to remove the deuterium out of their system. Bacteria, on the other side, hated deuterium that was present in the GOE. So they built a completely different plan where they needed shielding from melanin, and they also had to use ferredoxins. And the mitochondrial matrix is primarily bacterial in origin. There's very little of the archaean system left. There's some, but not a lot. But the really interesting part of today's blog on LinkedIn, which is free for everybody to read, tells you actually how we built this GPS system since the Cambrian explosion. And when you find out, just like in a cell phone, I think most people who listen to TV programs, they've heard about how intelligence agency can triangulate you by having the X, Y, and Z axis. Well, what's the X axis in you? It's the sphenoid bone. The sphenoid bone is the base of the skull, and what you may not know is the sphenoid bone is penetrated by cranial nerve 2, which is the light saber, and cranial nerve 5, which is vibration saber. It also is connected on the wings of the sphenoid by something called the middle meningeal artery, which is a branch of the external carotid. And in the center, it's connected to the internal carotid artery, which is a branch of the internal carotid. And then at the base of the sphenoid, the remnants of the y-axis, which are still present in us, in the clivus, it's called the notochord. The notochord was the y-axis. The notochord in us, the remnant is intervertebral discs. So if you think about the x-axis going across the skull, the y-axis going down the spine, what is the z-axis? The z-axis is the heart. The heart is the gravity well of the system. It's built on a helical structure because it vortexes blood. But what's the key thing? It sends an electromagnetic field out of the body about 22 feet, and that is the z-axis. And what sits on top? What's the iPhone of the system? It's the human thalamus. And the thalamus is where all sensation comes in to the brain and just about everything that's a vertebrate or chordate. Chordate meaning it uses a notochord to organize its central nervous system. But the cool part of all this is once you understand that the GPS system is powered by a magnetic vortex. What is that vortex? If you know anything about anatomy, you can look at it after I give you this video, because you probably should. The human ventricular system has two lateral ventricles. It has a central third ventricle that looks like a torpedo and a fourth ventricle that looks like a wine decanter. And what connects the third and fourth ventricle is something very interesting called the aqueduct of Sylvius. It's a very, very thin structure. So what happens? You have a vortex effect that connects the third and fourth ventricle. Why is that important? What sits on the floor of the fourth ventricle is the vagal motor area. And what happens as the vortex comes down, the heavier deuterium gets pushed out laterally in the fourth ventricle through the foramen Ilushka. That's where cranial nerves 5 through 12 are. And then that CSF goes on top of the head. But what's really important is the lighter hydrogen gets shoved right into the floor of the fourth ventricle, and it's called the foramen magendi. And this is what sets up the exhaust system for deuterium through the vagus nerve. And where does the vagus nerve go? The vagus nerve goes in some really interesting places. It connects the floor of the fourth ventricle. It's connected to the circumventricular organs. It's connected to the human voice. It's connected to the heart. And then it connects to the gut, meaning the stomach and the pancreas. And what happens is we release a very low pH in our stomach that's loaded with deuterium, gets cycled into the pancreas with 2 liters of bicarbonate through the carbonic anhydrous program that's built in the beta cells of the pancreas. And then you're designed to fractionate and get rid, of all your deuterium in your poop. That's why your poop, Bristol 4, is supposed to be like a smoked sausage where you don't need a lot of toilet paper. Why? Because the kinetic isotope effect of deuterium is actually in your poop and not in your brain. And, this is the basics of why kids get pandas and things like that, because the exhaust system is blocked. But the interesting thing is this GPS system that's been designed to work in you is created through a resonant frequency in this vortexing. The blood does the same thing. The blood and the heart is vortex. That's why it's a gravity well in this situation. And that's actually the old Archean system. The Archean system, when you think about it, is tied to the musculoskeletal system, meaning the sphenoid bone, to feel mechanical vibrations, but also the heart. And that keeps the deuterium in the blood, keeps it away from where the mitochondria are. And the mitochondria really are the bactericide, because you're technically an endosymbiont of both of the first 2 domains of life. That's how this system is designed to work. And when you understand that sunlight is designed to change the dielectric constant of water, and you understand that blood is made of 93% water, and it's an ultrafiltrate for CSF, that makes CSF. In the lateral ventricles, you have something called the choroid plexus, and the choroid plexus is loaded with melanin, and it further fractionates deuterium lower. So you get to around 130, 125 parts per million in CSF. So then you fractionate it further through this vortex in your brain. Now, there's a lot of really cool things that come up in the system once you actually see it built. Most of the people in allopathic medicine and functional medicine have no earthly idea how not only the system was built, why it was built, and what it's doing, but it is probably evolution's plan unfurling both the Archean librarian and the bacterial librarian to get to the human librarian. And without this system, things don't work. So you've probably heard of this system in your brain when you sleep during non-REM sleep called the glide lymphatic system. Everybody talks shit about what it does. I'm going to tell you it's very simple. It's designed to deplete deuterium when you sleep. That's how the brain gets rid of it. And if you can't sleep, it means you have too much deuterium in your head. If it gets really bad, the people that have this problem are the people that have dementia. Those, any dementia you think of, basically their head is filled with deuterium. And if you know anything about deuterium, it's got a high kinetic isotope effect. That basically means that one deuterium atom controls 96 light hydrogen atoms. So effectively, when you have too much deuterium in your CSF, it makes your CSF water like a gelatin, and it can't move, and that gives it a more inertial problem. That means you can't generate a vortex in the brain. And that is when people begin to lose consciousness. That is functionally what's happening. So when you sleep at night, you're designed to deuterium deplete. And obviously your exhaust system for deuterium is through the vagus nerve into your gut. So if you have a problem with cognition, if you have a problem with your turds, it means you're not getting rid of the deuterium. And that fundamentally is the key goal in quantum biology is the system working based on the boundary conditions? And it turns out, how do you get Silicon Valley sickness? So it's pretty easy. If you're a tech-addicted mammal, it ruins the vortex system in your brain. That means you collect deuterium, not only in your brain, but you connect it or collect it in your tissues. It doesn't stay in your blood. And for those of you who don't know this, because I don't think a lot of you do, in January of 2026, we had an emergency in the International Space Center where we had to rescue an astronaut who had this acute problem. They thought he had a stroke. He lost the ability to speak. For those of you who know anything about speech is controlled motor speech in humans by an area in the brain, left side frontal lobe called Broca's area. When they rescued this guy and brought him down, they did MRIs. Of course, they did everything on him in Houston, and they found out that he didn't have a stroke. The sad part is they didn't diagnose the problem, because what happened when he was up in space with no gravity, no vortex effect, he had a backup of deuterium, because he likely on the left side at foramen luschka and in the cerebellum, where the cranial nerves I told you 5 through 12 are. That CSF is designed to go over the hemispheres where Broca's area is. And likely he insufflated his Broca's area with deuterium. And that pushed him back in evolutionary time where he became like a monkey. Monkeys can't speak. Why? Because they had too much deuterium in that part of their cerebral cortex. And if you know anything about monkeys, their frontal lobes are not well developed anyway. So this can push you back in evolutionary time. That shows you in physics that you can go back and forth on human time scales. Time is reversible. This is an example where the physics of space shows us if you affect the human Lagrangian and you break the vortexing in the brain, it can lead to big problems. We're seeing it today in people that have hydrocephalus, who have normal pressure hydrocephalus. So we see it in people with brain tumors. We see it all around. But, this is fundamentally not a difficult thing to understand when you understand how the human GPS system is built. X-axis sphenoid bone, Y-axis notochord, Z-axis heart. Okay? That's today's lesson from Cruz Longevity Center in Costa del Sol. Read the blogs, stack the lessons, learn the stuff. Out the scammers. There you go.